We're going to start with public to be heard. Is there anything to be said that is not on the agenda? All right. Somebody's coming in. They don't have their hand up. Anybody on there that doesn't have their hand up? Okay. Well, it doesn't look like. So seeing no, did you have your hand up, Ned?
No.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure.
Don't scratch or anything.
You be careful how much we auction off.
Say, don't get an auction and start raising your hand.
So the first item of business is to approve this Essex Rescue letter. And if people aren't aware, Essex Rescue has gone up significantly over the last couple of years, 182% in fiscal year 2023. And another looks like 65% in 2024, which is pretty tough on the communities that are served, because it's a service that is, that's done well and people need it. So the 5 towns have gotten together. There was a meeting of the town administrators, town managers. And the idea is that they came up with a letter to send to the board of Essex Rescue, detailing some of the things that we would like to see in terms of changes so that we can understand better the cost increases, because nobody wants to turn down Essex Rescue. But so they're asking that they provide better financial reporting.
We are asking.
We were asking, yes, I'm sorry. So we, all the
Signatories, yeah.
And that would be starting in 2023 in April. And that hopefully it would be quarterly. And they asked that the towns have asked that each member municipality have an option to place a voting member on the Essex Rescue Board of Directors by July 1, 2023. The municipalities are asked that Essex Rescue conduct an independent financial audit to be completed by July 1st and shared with member municipalities. There is discussion that the municipalities would also help pay for that because we were asking for it. They asked that Essex Rescue conduct an independent operational assessment to be completed by July 2023 and shared with the member municipalities. And then they recognize that these are significant. We recognize that these are significant requests from our municipalities, and we feel they are necessary to ensure financial transparency and competence for our boards and our residents. We look forward to continuing to work together and welcome a dialogue about how we can best remain partners and well into the future.
So I think it's worth noting that there's no programming changes suggested in this request. It's really more has to do with governance and taking a look at the organization. And then once the Westford, Underhill, Jericho town and Essex town and Essex City, which sounds really weird to say Essex City, that then programming things may have to be, it would be appropriate to look at that. But at this point, we just really want to sit at the table and figure out what their operation is and what the substantial increases are as a result of it.
Yeah, and the letter starts out that they're letting all the towns are letting Essex Rescue know there's nothing that is being complaining about the service, that everybody's satisfied with the service. They continue to offer the tremendous resource to the communities. That we want to continue with a positive relationship going forward, but we need to come up with a plan that's sustainable, because to jump from $4 or something per person a few years ago to up to 11, up to 14, up to now 18 or more. Yeah, when you look at the total numbers, it's pretty significant.
Right, we went from 15 to 36,000 to 78,000 or something like it was.
Yeah,
That progression is
substantial, yeah.
huge. But this is no trivial matter. I mean,
No,
you take highway and you take providing safety services to town. That's really what the
Our biggest
select board is
portion, too.
mostly is about. So
yeah, it really is. It's an important thing. And unfortunately, some of this has gotten into the news media before towns really actually had time to actually vote on it. Rachel Mann was outside of Essex the night that they were voting on it and reporting, and we certainly have heard our share of wanting to be on the news. But we have not, this is a public discussion of. And our job tonight, based on the agenda, is are we going to approve this letter and be one of the towns that are going to participate in this process?
I read the letter. I thought it was well written, and I think it's appropriate. So based on that, I'll make a motion to approve the letter to Essex Rescue.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now, is there any comment?
Catherine, if you heard what was said by the fire department about their structure, does that same structural issues question, does that apply to Essex Rescue? Because if Essex Rescue cannot access the federal funds that are available for these types of services, because health and well-being is one of the principal objectives.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so if there's a structural issue that bars them from, because in addition to these increases, you also had our fire department picking up the majority of the first responses.
Right.
And so when you have a structural thing like this, that I know they were looking at new buildings. I knew they were looking at staging an ambulance here, because meantime between demand and service is so critical that somebody should be doing a strategic plan for this whole area.
That's exactly right. I do not disagree with you on that. I think that's really an important thing to be looked at. Not just the 5 communities, but a bigger, even a bigger look at.
yeah, that's been suggested, sure.
But that's why,
But that not being able to access federal funds, that rings a bell. I don't know how that applies to rescue, but I know it applied to fire.
yeah, we don't,
Well,
that's some of the questions that the towns are asking to be answered. The idea is there has been some changes over the years that whether the volunteers, how volunteers are, treated essentially, whether there is, and because they're moving more to a paid positions. And whether, how this impacts, but it is structural, absolutely. So this is what the letter is about, give us a seat to talk about how this can
all
be
I'm
looked
saying
at.
to you is that we've got the state, we've got the feds.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah,
you heard the chief talking a few minutes ago about an increase in legal bills and increase in insurance, when in fact, these people should be covered by the Good Samaritan. In other words, their insurance companies, particularly in a car crash, should be getting billed at a significant amount of money. There's no reason why the Jericho taxpayers, if you're coming through from Massachusetts, you smash your car and 3 people end up doing all the stuff, the car burns, lithium batteries, all that other stuff. That if we don't look at the fundamental functional pieces of this, and you're talking about one of them is trying to get a volunteer that's skilled enough to save somebody's life. So because of liability, they're moving towards more salaried, full paid people from volunteers. So, but it's something that we really need. But if we don't look at how we're doing it
Right.
strategically to say, this is how we can better do it. What is their cost of capital? Are they borrowing money? I heard the fire department's borrowing money. Your cost of capital is 1/2 or less than us, private business, or even a residential borrower today. And so I just think that in your letter, you should include that a review of the whole thing.
Well, there was a mention of operational review, and we don't know what the bylaws and the articles.
Operational means that operational doesn't touch the issues that I just did. Operational is function.
And an
Well,
audit.
first we've got to get at the table.
And audit.
yeah, we did, that's it.
We're not even at the table yet. But what we also don't know is what the original charter and articles of incorporation are between Essex Rescue and the then village of Essex Junction, what is their charter? And for us to say we want to be on the board is not as simple as, oh yeah, we'll sign you up for February, they've got to do a charter change, which means may have to confer with city officials. I
We
mean,
don't
so we don't know any of that stuff yet. But I do think it was appropriate for Underhill, Jericho, Westford, the town and the city to put this together and we'll all sit down and see where we
Yeah,
are.
because
Just
those kind of, it just, those numbers really aren't sustainable by our taxpayers. We need the service. It's absolutely critical, but how much can we keep adding to that kind of number?
Yeah.
Well, all I'm saying is that there's a financial, functional, legal question that I did not hear address. An audit is looking at how they're paying for things. And
Yeah.
what it's not looking at, is there other opportunities for reorganizing themselves to change their sources and uses of capital and all those other things. That's much different than.
Oh, yeah. So we're hoping that once people get a seat at the table or at least get their toe in the door, that those things can be asked.
Okay, and the other thing is just understand. Today is a very remarkable day. This is the first time in 30 years that we have not had a ranking United States senator able to plug our umbilical cord
Oh, yeah.
into the budget in Washington. And I don't know the exact number, but for every dollar we in Vermont sent to Washington, over $3 came back
Right.
to us because of seniority. We are now at the bottom of the food chain in both the House and the Senate. And so all these grants and all this great stuff, including like 670,000 went to train EMS people in Chittenden County, specifically earmarked by our senior senator. So we could be in for a very dry spell in the future.
It's gonna be
Yeah. The only
very
thing that,
different now. Yeah, he brought home the bacon year after year after year.
the only thing that's going to help us a little bit is the fact that he put into a lot of those laws, the minimum state funding.
He
Yeah.
brought home the whole pig.
He did. And we thank him. Every town in the state thanks him. Okay, so that's it for the letter to.
Yeah, that's
Essex.
for the letter we have had. So next on the agenda is we need approval for the village center designation for Jericho Center. And you want to address that?
Yeah, sure. So the village center designation is important in that it provides ongoing ability to access grant funding. Can't remember it's every 8 years, the renewal has to be performed. Linda and David had worked on putting together the application and yeah.
Yeah, it's got some goodies. I mean, we, in fact, is on the municipal fuel switching webinar. They talked about stacking your grants. And even on this one, it says eligible code work include ADA modifications, like electrical, fire safety, or plumbing up to 50K. So I mean, you could get your fuel switching grant, money, you could get, the money through this to, do some of the ADA modifications. You could even back into the, elevator money. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to play with for the town library, in fact, based on what's in, the Jericho's, what's in the available to those growth centers.
Yeah, we actually had a meeting this morning with the CCRPC representative to the Municipal Energy Resilience Fund with library representatives, and we discussed other needs for municipal buildings.
Great. So anyway, what we need is a motion to approve the designation renewal.
So moved.
Well, it's a tricky one. I don't know. Do we really want to do this? I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Now, comes to a real exciting one. We get to approve a lister. so that Lori can do her job.
I can sit back and just,
Right.
you know.
Well, if you would come to the table, Martha, I'm sure most people know who you are, but for the record, we're going to ask you to state your name and give us a little bit about your background.
No one's out there.
And what,
You don't have to tell us everything.
Okay, all right. I'm usually a pretty big open book, so.
and that, and what, what interests you in becoming a lister, the nice basic package, and then the other select board members can ask their questions.
Okay, so I'm Martha Prince. I've been in Jericho all my life. I grew up on Lee River Road. I was a hunt on a farm. And I live across the street. So I've been here all my life. I'll be 65 next month or next week, and it's been 65 years, and I moved from the farm to my house on top of the hill. Our family has been pretty much involved in the town in past history. I mean, a lot of it. I find that right now, I think the town is in need of maybe a bit of new blood. I am not the smartest or brightest crayon in the box. I learn better with repetitive things over and over again. This is certainly a new field for me. It's not something that I've been involved with, but Lori has assured me that probably I'll do just fine. I just think that it's a time, and specifically in the lister's office at this point, that there's need. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of people standing up and saying, okay, I'm willing to help, I can try to do this. So I just think that probably I would be, at this point, probably the best choice of everybody that you have sitting at the table.
Not about something up.
To make that work.
It's quite the political platform.
I didn't like that.
Well, and of course, you already stated you're a willing learner. I mean, that's important.
Right. And I think that probably my confusion in a lot of it, just listening to people, is that you people have so many like abbreviations for all of these things. And even when you and I have talked and it comes up with a 4-letter or whatever, and it's like, well, what the heck is that? It's like this great big long thing. And I've noticed it even with Lori in the office. Well, this is a this or this. What is that? Oh, okay. So now I understand what that is. So a lot of abbreviations. So I do have to definitely learn what those are. Otherwise I'll be asking. I just think that it's a time. I don't have a ton of time. I know that you have the new reappraisal that is coming up. And I think that probably getting in on board right now. I believe that you got some new programs that are coming in. And it's probably easier to learn with everyone else learning the new program, opposed to coming in on board and saying, okay, so here's one program, go learn this. But 2 weeks from now, we're going to switch and change this whole program over. So I think it's probably a good starting point for somebody to come in new, just because of changing those systems. And it'll be a learning curve.
And Lori seems very excited.
I am. To be functional again. But I think she'll be a good addition. Like she said, there's a lot of new coming up. We'll be really working with Vermont Pie here.
All right.
Here we go.
Apple or cherry?
Yeah, right. The new system, we'll be using that a lot more. I've done a couple of webinars with some of the new features where we won't be using the Nimerick screen as much. We'll now be using it in the CAM of the Microsoft system. So worked with Nimerick and some webinars and just seeing some of the new vision, and shouldn't be too difficult of a change because a lot of it's the same. It's just going to be in a different place, but it's going to do much more. I'm really excited about the capabilities that we'll have with the new system as far as mapping, comparing to other towns. Yeah, lots of capabilities with the new system, so it'll be fun to play with.
And this is something that Lori and I have talked about, and when she said that all of these new things were coming up, especially like the mapping system and that kind of thing, those type of things coming up new, and she's just barely on board to learn it and started going through all the the different things that I just think that it's a good time to kind of jump on board, and maybe it's not as much needed right at the moment, but 3 months down the road, I think that the office is going to get much busier. I think that just like I said, with the new system coming in, that certainly is a good time for me to jump on board is when there's something new coming in.
Do you have questions?
I don't have any questions. I'm grateful that you're interested. And I know when we looked at the alternative to finding a third lister, it
Or second,
became
right now.
second
Yeah.
became immensely complicated and started talking about charter change at some point or whatever. It just sounded like, so I'm very grateful that you're stepping up to the plate to help out. And I think your perspective is exactly what we need in town government. So thank
I
you.
think it'll work well.
I agree with my colleagues.
Good.
Catherine, do you agree?
Oh.
John,
We
do you
need,
agree?
we should have, a-
We can commute.
Oh, we could ride our bicycles together.
Oh, that's right. You are practically
Yeah.
throw a baseball to each other.
so we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve as the new lister, Martha Prince.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have a nice vacation, Martha.
I am headed right now.
Gotta play in the catch.
No, we're driving.
Oh, boy.
Drive safe, be safe. And have,
And
a-
Eric, you are one of the fake clan,
I am, yeah,
and your grandfather was
Dawn.
Don.
Yeah.
My father and your father were select board and
Right.
overseer of the boards at the same time and
Yeah,
also.
does your father Bud?
oh, yeah.
Was there a
I
poor
think
house?
he
in
hired, I
Jer-
think
was
my
there a poor house
grandfather
in
hired
Jericho?
him.
Yeah, there was a poor farm.
Was there a poor farm in Jericho?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I believe that, yeah, and I'm trying to think where.
Every farmer was poor. right?
Yeah.
They still are. It was still in the town reports in the sixties.
I remember going to the poorhouse in Sheldon up near St. Albans when it had just been decommissioned or whatever. It was not a great spot to be in, but I did have reason to go into the building and I thought, wow, this is what all those things are about that I've been reading about the poorhouse down the road.
See, a lot of my fathers back in that day and when Don was in, what they did was they went around to individuals that were struggling. And what they would do is they'd kind of get all their things together and they'd go and they'd be the overseer of the poor. So if they saw somebody or got noticed that somebody was struggling and, you know, they'd go and they'd visit, find out what it was that they needed and see if they could find a solution to kind of help them out in the interim until they could kind of get on their feet.
Yeah.
They did a lot of that.
I mean, that's terrific work. Well, thank you both. So it will be up to Lori to see when you start.
Yeah, when she gets back.
Yeah, when she gets back.
I'm cruising.
Yeah.
Start with the vacation.
I am too. I am over.
All right. Paula is going to take the discussion on this one because it comes from the state. And we have to update our speed limit ordinance based on the Judicial Bureau's new regulations.
Okay, well, so the Judicial Bureau of Vermont has reached out to all of the municipalities in Vermont. And they are asking the municipalities to streamline their speed limit ordinances. That being said, the way that they don't want, well, as our speed limits are in a book, you have to flip through and find which speed ordinance goes with which road. They are asking municipalities to have speed limits like all roads that are 45 that we have a speed limit for, all roads that are 35 have a speed limit ordinance for. They want to compile it in a list. And so that's what I've asked Claudine to do, and she has prepared that document that you've got in front of you. John has the original to be signed off by you guys. So it makes it easier for the courts to pull this document for the town of Jericho, look it up real quick. So it's a time consuming thing, I think, more than anything, that it's going to cut their time in half because they'll have just a list, a one-page list in front of them stating the roads and what the speed limits are. So that's what we have here tonight to have you guys sign off on. After it is signed off, we will post it on our website. We'll post it around town just so that this document is, you know, we're supposed to post it throughout the town and on our website.
it's worth noting that this request was not to, it was, as you said, it was more reformatting.
Yes.
It was not to assign speed limits to roads that don't have them. It was not to
Correct.
change any portion of that. In fact, in doing a little bit of background, as I think I'd mentioned to you, the town, the state doesn't even recommend speed limits on gravel
Correct.
roads
Yes,
as a general principle. They
correct.
do not recommend a speed limit on gravel roads. So, anyway, in you putting this together, it was really a matter of taking out all these old photostated papers and all that sort of stuff and putting them in one kind of clean format, as I understand it.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
And then in checking, as I think, again, I did mention to you again, in checking with this Bible, which, gosh, I've looked at many times, the Select Board Handbook.
Yep.
To your point, this isn't the normal sort of procedure for ordinances. We can approve this consolidation of documents, and then the town of Jericho will post the results,
Yep.
which are nothing new, it's just reformatting. So there isn't really any hearings in advance of us approving it, if you will. We can approve it if the chair wants to.
Right.
Allow people to weigh in, but-
Because according to it, we have to have it to them, like now.
Yeah, it was very short turnaround time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
I've already had the sheriff's department come in looking for that document.
So we have the document, you're
We
ready
do,
to,
yeah. Yeah, I have it.
So-
signature.
and the format's sort of similar to Underhill. It's all from the
Yes.
template.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion or do we just?
No, we
just
need a
sign it?
motion
We
to,
do need a motion and a signature. Okay.
yeah, accept the updated speed limit ordinance.
I'll make a motion to accept the updated speed ordinance for the town of Jericho.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
I,
The top documents for Catherine and me to sign as chair.
This?
That's.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to say?
you've got to stay till 12 tonight.
Oh, this is just from my. It's just. Oh, you did? Is that this one?
Yes, correct. Go keep closer to the room. That's the ordinance on the signature page.
All right, and now we come to the highlight of the evening.
Wow, that's pretty high expectation.
Yeah.
Oh, no. That's a lot.
But it is the highlight of the evening. That's why people are on Zoom and on in person to listen to your presentation on how the planning commission the whole thing about all the work you did on, putting together the ARPA stuff that we've done and your recommendations. And so,
I thought the large attendance was just to see if we were really gonna do that village designation again or not.
I know, because, considering where some of these people were from, exactly.
Eric, I have.
What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do?
I have the document on the desktop.
Yep.
It usually shows in the
Doesn't look like it's open.
selection window.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's open.
Oh, okay. I need to open it.
It's a PowerPoint, not Word.
Oh, then that's not it then.
Well, So it's a PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, so I sent it this afternoon.
Oh, okay. All right. I got
That's the one I mentioned to you, John, that's saved in the ARPA folder.
Okay, I thought it was the original. I didn't realize that it was a.
So should he be going to the ARPA folder on the desktop or through his email?
On the shared drive, in the ARPA folder, it's on the shared drive. And then it should be labeled for tonight's meeting.
Mhm. Thank you. Now I'm clear. There we
Yeah, that's
go. Okay, let me go back to Zoom. Screen share.
That is pretty neat, you know, that the family of Donald Fay and Bud Hunt,
Yeah.
both in the same room years and years later. That's kinda
Yeah,
cool.
my grandfather hired him to be for the road however many years ago.
Yeah,
People are trying to get on.
yeah,
Yeah,
we got a lot going on at once here, Jim.
I can let him in. I don't see anybody trying to get in, actually.
So we'll have it open, and why am I not able to see it on the share?
They're saying that both the audio and the video are not working. Oh. Call in and video.
Okay,
Well, there's 20 other people that are doing just fine, I think, so.
Eric, can you help?
Yep.
Can you open? I've got it open on the desktop, but I'm not sure why it's not showing over here.
But that was a nice amount of work. Wait, nicely presented.
So I guess I'm not sure what you're trying to do.
So I'm trying to open it. Yeah, screen share.
The host has started the meeting, so you should maybe just try again.
Usually,
clear your screen, John, and then minimize the Zoom meeting.
What link are you
It doesn't like.
That's right. You know a lot about this stuff too.
Should be fine. Let me just see, I think it's,
yeah, but now it's,
If you click on
but
the
people,
agenda,
I don't think
yeah, they can't
people
see.
at home are seeing this.
So if you open up the agenda, that link should work, because other people use that link to get in. So just you try that too.
So just hit share over right. Now minimize your everything but what is showing.
That's odd. There's definitely other people.
Yeah,
you're
normally-
good.
And then can you do one more thing for me?
Sure.
It's on the PowerPoint, just go to slideshow, it's at the top menu,
Yeah.
top menu, slideshow over to the right.
Yep.
Yep, there. And do you now go all the way to the left
Yep.
and say play from beginning? That'll just be a slide, and that might
Great. There we
actually
go.
help with the share,
Okay.
because now it
Gotcha.
knows that it's
Good luck.
displaying.
It's sharing. I think we're
Yeah,
good.
but maybe that would be good to confirm.
So it's that weird thing again where it's not showing, it's showing
That's okay.
it's fine,
Okay.
it's just. They're not seeing this, they're seeing the one where you have the slide and then you have the little slide with your notes and stuff,
Yeah,
whatever.
so they're seeing this slide and the next slide, looks like,
Yeah,
Swap
Yeah.
presenter view and slideshow.
maybe, yeah.
How about that? No.
Well, now we
that's that,
see,
yeah, so
That's
now
what
we
the-
see
now
this
we
and they
see
see that.
presenter view and they see, it doesn't matter,
Yeah, it's
because
fine.
I don't have any notes, and
You don't have
as
any,
long as
Because
you will bear with us to walk it through. I
Right,
mean, if you want to stay here, I guess that would be
I would just
okay
leave it
too.
here.
Yeah, we
Stay
can stay
here.
with so that
Okay.
the public can see the bigger
Okay,
presentation.
okay. So I'm Susan Brzee, and I'm here on behalf of the Planning Commission. Thank you very much. ARPA, big decisions, a lot of money, a lot of responsibility. The Planning Commission noted that the Select Board conducted 2 surveys of residents and got a lot of responses. And we took it upon ourselves to think about ARPA. And we decided to offer the perspective into your decision-making, the perspective of the long-term plans for the town. And strategically, what the town has stated are its goals, and also from the planning commissioner's perspective, what we understand to be issues facing the town. I think I should definitely say at the get-go that we appreciate your listening to our recommendation, and we fully appreciate that you have really difficult decisions to make. And we know that we're just one voice of many. We have a really great planning commission who takes their responsibilities seriously and has worked hard
to inform ourselves about planning issues. And so we're in somewhat of a unique position. So as you hear from residents, we're here just saying, here's the point of view of long-term planning, which might not be the most important view. We realize but it's one view, and we felt responsible to offer it to you. You didn't ask us to do this, so it's very nice of you to listen to what we have to say. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the process that the Planning Commission went through over a period of about 5 months. I'm going to share with you the conclusions that we came to, and then I'm going to offer you some next steps, because it's a lot of money and these are big decisions, but sometimes it helps to see these big decisions and these big problems and challenges that we have broken down into small pieces that are actually things that we could maybe do to move the needle. Not perfect, not everything. $1.5 million is a lot of money. It barely scratches the surface of all the things that people in the town want to do.
Or even some of the big projects that just.
Exactly. Right. So I'm going to lead you through the process, the conclusions, and then some ideas about some next steps. Okay. So you conducted, so Jericho has received $1.5 million basically, and you conducted 2 surveys with some assistance from our former town planner, and we took it upon ourselves to offer you a recommendation. We held 9 meetings where the ARPA topic was part of our agenda. And we discussed ARPA, and we started out very general, thinking about the surveys that you conducted. And then we proceeded over those 9 meetings to do research and to develop a list of projects and to develop some criteria to evaluate the projects against. And one of the first decisions we made was, do we limit ourselves to the stuff that you asked about? Or do we bring other ideas to the table, our own PC table at our meetings? And we decided we would weight what you decided was important to ask about, but we also contributed other ideas to the projects list. And the sources of information and the sources of research are listed here. We looked at the surveys you conducted. We looked at Vermont League of Cities and Towns and what their recommendations were for towns. We looked at other towns. We looked at what Shelburne was doing, what Essex was doing, a bunch of different towns, not 100, about a half a dozen towns, peer towns, similar towns in size and nature to Jericho. We looked at the town plan, which from a planning commission's point of view is sort of like the Constitution. And we also considered plans and studies that we've done over the last several years. You guys have a stormwater plan. You have a bike, ped, and transportation plan. We did some planning around the commercial district. We have village center plans. So we looked at those plans. Again, not in exhaustive detail, but now we have 3, 5, 7 years of tenure on the planning commission, so we're familiar with a lot of the issues. We did village walkthroughs a few years ago. We resurfaced some of our notes from those. We considered the Planapalooza, the charrettes that were done for Riverside, and we also considered public input, what we've heard over the years. We did not do anything specific for ARPA. We didn't do a survey. However, we did have 9 meetings, and we did hear some public input. In particular, we heard a lot of input from the Affordable Housing Committee, who was very engaged with us during this process. So we came out with this projects list and this evaluation criteria. So these meetings occurred between the formal meetings that we had that contained ARPA on our agenda. It was from June 21st, and we finalized our recommendation on November 1st. And we basically voted and said, yes, we agree, this is our recommendation, we'll forward it to the select board. And then we crossed our fingers and said, hope they can use this, hope it helps, hope you it helps you do your decision-making job. So the project list, we had dozens of projects on there, and we organized them into these 4 categories, which are pretty broad bunches. Infrastructure, water, wastewater, affordable housing was the first category. The second category was bike and ped improvements. The third category was public facilities, municipal buildings, and recreation. And the fourth category was who were the businesses and residents that were hardest hit by the pandemic, because I think we have to remind ourselves this is ARPA, came about to help towns and people recover from the pandemic, which brought in issues around childcare, lost wages for people, lost revenue for the town. Some of those things, because they're not necessarily the priority of the planning commission, we felt other people in town are advocating to you for some of those things. And so they weren't necessarily like what's most important to the planning commission, what's most important to the town aren't always going to be the same. We also established specific evaluation criteria because we talked about it for a couple of meetings and we were like, how are we going to get our arms around this? We need to be more objective and we need to be more data driven. So we established a matrix, and this is where the strength of the members of the planning commission really comes into play. We have people who've done strategic planning, who work in public health, who are real estate agents, who are architects, so you have a lot of good minds. So we created this matrix and we scored the projects, and we scored them against these 4 criteria: alignment, impact, equality, and strategy. And we said, does this project align with ARPA, with the town plan? What about with the regional plan, which is called the ECOS plan, the Chittenden County Regional Plan? And then we looked at impact. Is it what ARPA, the law, says, is that the project should be transformative, but we also wanted to look at projects like, could we really get them done? Are they feasible? Are they going to have a long-term burden for the town? Or are they, a one and done kind of a project? There was an issue around equity, which we chose to reframe as equality because we had to balance between a goal of providing the broadest benefit to the most number of people in town versus the goal of providing the benefit to the people who are most impacted. And those are not always also the same. And then we looked at a strategic focus, like, is this a unique opportunity and do we have the ability to leverage other money? So we scored all the projects. We kind of, we funneled it down a couple of times. We went through it a couple of times, and that was the process that we went through. So around the maybe 6th or 7th meeting, we developed a priority list, so to speak, that kind of went into 2 buckets. And again, to reiterate, we realized that you need to allocate money among many priorities, and these are only 2 of many. We are just saying, we think as you go through that process that you should put pretty high on the list these 2 buckets: Riverside development and housing. I'm not going to go through the whole scoring matrix, although they kind of summarize up to these things that if you think about those criteria I just went through, impact, alignment, and so forth, they scored the highest from our point of view. So Riverside can address many needs.
So on each of those areas, there were a couple points or something assigned for each of these criteria.
Right.
And X project, okay, you get 2, 1, 1, 1, it adds up to 8. This next one adds up to 10, and that you tried to objectify it.
Yes.
Very difficult to do.
It is, but also, we also tried to be fast and not perfect. So some of our scoring was high, medium, low. Really good, sort of good, not so great.
Right.
It wasn't that, I don't want to give you the false say. It wasn't Ernst & Young,
Right.
It was, we have some shared wisdom here. We have the public interest on the table. Let's offer some thoughts. So Riverside can address many needs and especially that it's a walkable area that it could support more mixed use development. And then housing as a separate category. We looked at a lot of data from the Affordable Housing Committee. We shared a lot of that data with you guys in August, and that was in parallel, if you think about the timing, was informing a lot of our discussions. And one of the data points, just to remind you of, is that the median price of a home in Jericho by June of 2022 was $583, which was a huge jump. Yes, it was the pandemic. Yes, it's the market. But we also just learned from the questions that we just did related to the town plan that Jericho really has a lot of great strengths and it's very desirable. And there's a strong private market, you know, it's a capitalist society that we live in. It's a strong market that is also driving up our housing prices. We have a lot of work to do on that. I'm not saying that's the only it's not just the market. We definitely have zoning work to do and so forth. The schools need more kids. The town has lost income diversity. Residents want more options. We heard a lot more recently about people wanting to age in place. People want their kids to be able to move here. We did an analysis that 2 teachers at the high school, a 2-income family would find it difficult to afford a new house here. And we also observed that the larger homes in larger subdivisions being built in the rural areas is not serving our town plan goals. So that was sort of the logical conclusions that we came to. So what? Okay, so therefore, our priorities are these 2 priorities, which are separate but overlapping and virtuously can be like complementary and mutually beneficial to one another, but they're not exactly the same. So there's a lot of things we can do to promote housing diversity that have nothing to do with Riverside. And there's a lot of things we can do for Riverside that probably would benefit housing, but not necessarily. And then there's this sweet spot of the overlap where we can work that would benefit both. But I want to clarify that the list of actions that we identified cover both of these circles, not just the intersection. So there's definitely like trade-offs to be had. Okay, so specifically for recommendations around housing, we recognize that some of the issues around affordability are supply, needing to build new houses of certain types. And some of it is of the supply we already have and making homes we have more energy efficient, being able to add ADUs, being able to convert single homes to multifamily homes. And so we thought it was important not just to talk about building, but to look at the assets that are already on the ground here and how to make better use of them. We prioritized low and moderate income households because upper income households are doing just fine. They don't really need that much help from the town. And in particular, smaller dwellings, which are not really income specific, but handle like different stages of life, different family configurations. They have a different land use impact. So those were some of the things we looked at for housing. And then for Riverside, we really zeroed in on and taking advantage of the fact that the town is conducting a village wastewater study, that if there's any way that we can use the ARPA funds to accelerate that project, to catalyze development that is mixed use. And oh, by the way, here's where that beautiful sweet spot intersection is, to include housing of various types and various sizes. Okay. So still pretty big picture, still like, okay, well, how do I write a check for that? Is, how I think.
Yeah, that's
you're thinking,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how do we do that? When SJ and I were here talking to you in August specifically about housing, we showed you a variety of tools that the town has. We can keep changing zoning and pray and hope that somebody comes and does what we want them to do. Despite all the market pressures around cost of construction and cost of labor. Or the town can take a more proactive approach. So if you think about that August discussion, this is kind of saying like, oh, well, we thought that those were good ideas anyway. And now there's a piggy bank to potentially help take some of those ideas and take them off that list and say, maybe these are ones we should think about seriously. That's what the next list is that I'm going to discuss. So the first one is that I think it's reasonable to acknowledge that we have a lot of expertise in our town. We have engineers, we have developers, we have homeowners, we have business people. It's quite possible that we have, like we just heard from Martha, that there's expertise in town, but the Planning Commission and the Affordable Housing Committee do not have the expertise to like tell you that we should issue a $36 million bond like Fairfax just did for their high school. So the first recommendation is to really acquire either retiring or engaging or contracting with some real estate development professional who can help us determine real tangible projects, what they would cost and how they can be funded. And John and I have talked about this before, and that the Jericho Community Development Corp, either a professional working with them or a professional working with the town, but it is possible to use ARPA funds to expand your resources and expand your capacity to do stuff that you really want to do. And we really need some help. We will not, SJ and I and our committees cannot carry this ball. Maybe the Community Development Corp can. It doesn't really seem like you guys have the bandwidth because you're dealing with everything in the town. So that's really, and that professional would be able to support both of these efforts. So that's the first sort of like, here's what I would write a check for. The next one is that, so this is the how, this is bolstering town capacity, which is hiring a development professional to work with the town and to work with the Community Development Corp. We had a presentation from Dominic Cloud from St. Albans in September before these recommendations were finalized. And we learned how active and how hands-on they have been in St. Albans to get a rec center, to get a bike store, to get their main street filled with stores, to add housing. And they didn't outsource it. They took it upon themselves, but he's a very special guy and he doesn't work in Jericho. So we need a Dominic Cloud in Jericho because we were really inspired and motivated by what we learned.
Some of
from
that was
him.
TIF money too.
Yes, right. But now there's ARPA money and also nobody, as far as we can tell, I think we've come from the mindset of the Planning Commission is a lot less like we could never afford this doesn't feel like the problem.
No.
The problem feels like there's so much money out there. How the hell do we get our hands on it?
Yeah.
How do we apply for it and get it and spend it for the benefit of
Right.
many generations to come?
All right, Ned, you have-
Very short, because she's not even done with her initial.
I'm
piece.
almost done. I actually only have.
This is about the Zoom meeting. The reason why people can't get in is because you're using the 5:30 meeting ID instead of going to the 6:30.
Oh.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
I
Well,
just did it.
Just did it.
I just did it and I got in on 5:30 and I could not get in on 6:30.
Okay, go ahead, Susan, I'm
We're using the
sorry.
one that's on the agenda. Because that's the meeting number I plugged in.
So for Riverside, that sort of lands us into two specific action items, completing the wastewater study and depending on the findings of that, prioritizing and accelerating the Riverside findings. And then the second is really to actively negotiate with landowners in that area there is a preliminary plan for internal roads and for sidewalks, and potentially could the town become more active in making that plan actually happen. From housing point of view, we learned about the project in Underhill with the church and the Harvest Crossing development that they're doing. And we think that there's a really good opportunity to identify a parcel that either we already own or that we could acquire and do a project, because it's not so big that we couldn't do it. You know, it's daunting, but it's not impossible. And it would demonstrate success, and it would demonstrate that we were able to make it happen. Then there are also other financial incentives like fees and waivers and tax benefits. And the Affordable Housing Committee continues to work on the details of what they think that they want to recommend to you to do. So in some ways, this is really like a precursor, and I defer really very much to them to ultimately decide what those priorities should be on housing. So the last thing is what our next steps are that I wanted to make you aware of, because it's a continuum. It's not one meeting and then, you know, good luck. The Affordable Housing Committee, the Planning Commission has encouraged them to develop housing production targets, both in terms of units and dollars, and that fit in with Jericho's contribution to the Building Homes campaign together, because it doesn't help us all if we're sitting here going, well, if we had 10 units, that would be great. And if we had 1,000 units, that's really what we need. So we would like to quantify exactly what's reasonable for Jericho in terms of housing in general, and then housing for middle income housing that's not, you know, above $600,000 basically. Our intention is to create a resolution that is your resolution that we come back to you with, that includes these housing targets that we hope we would encourage you to adopt as goals, actual housing goals, because that will set up then what the ultimate decisions are, if you know what you're shooting for.
Right.
And those targets can feed into the town plan. We can incorporate those targets into the town plan. We can run the town plan based on those goals. And we're going to continue to request direction from you for the town plan. So I wanted to take the opportunity to make you aware of this basic schedule, which is tentative, but pretty solid at this point, that as we're working on the town plan, all of these things that we just talked about will continue to be on the table, because whether ARPA funds it or ARPA doesn't fund it, that's really up to you. And you have a lot of other fish to fry. We are still going to try to push these balls forward down the field. Terrible analogy, because you never have one ball going down the field. But anyway, so January 17th will be a kickoff meeting for the town plan project. And then each of the next 6 planning commission months, the first meeting of the month will be dedicated to the town plan. And we've organized the discussions into topic areas. And for the moment, this is how we think the topic areas are going to fall. February 7th will be land use. March 14th will be housing, schools, and seniors. So that's the one that's probably most relevant to what we're talking about tonight. April 3rd, we hope to do a big community forum at the high school or at the elementary school or something with, 100 people, hopefully, and lots of exercises and food and good stuff. So that'll be April 3rd, we think. May 2nd, we'll talk about the local economy and the business community, and June 6th, we'll finish up with community facilities and infrastructure, because that's really the means to the end. So the previous 5 meetings are all about the means, basically, and then the end. And then we hope to have a first draft of the town plan by June, July. And I'm not sure what your timeline is for hoping to make decisions, or if you've already made decisions about ARPA, but I wanted to make you aware that we'll learn a lot more because all of these meetings will invite public comment. We'll continue to do online surveys. Hopefully we're hopefully gonna maybe have a table or something at town meeting. So as you go, I think there'll be a lot more opportunities for you to validate what you've just heard from us, from me. Does this make sense? What do other people think? What are the other priorities that other people in the town have? That's basically my message to you about the work of the Planning Commission related to ARPA, which we hope is helpful, and we just want to be a voice at the table representing the long-term planning hat for the town.
Very nicely done. But the good news is, as VLCT has pushed all along, take your time, take your time, take your time, that the money has to be fully committed by December of 2024. And theoretically, the project's done by December, the end of December 2026, but the expectation is that deadline is going to be extended because most small towns haven't even started.
Which
And there's a-
deadline, the second one? Or-
Yeah, the second one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, not just in Vermont, but across the country, a lot of small towns, they're trying to figure out how they can even deal with this influx. Because they don't have the staff, they don't have, the fortunate committees that we do. So, I mean, I think we can certainly wait till.
Well, we don't need to wait. We don't need to wait.
We don't need to
until
wait,
December
but there's
2024.
time to,
Yeah. I want to first just compliment the planning commission for putting this together. The select board has been at the back of this parade, frankly. And so I'm really glad that the planning commission saw this opportunity as well as the appropriateness of really thinking strategically down the line, which
yeah, I think that.
we really haven't done as well as we.
Well, we
could have.
started out good, and then when Catherine left, because she
But
was.
What I do appreciate is a couple of things come to mind, and we may need to go back a couple steps.
Where do you
if
wanna
we're
go,
gonna
Wayne?
over this. The two main what's 5? Oh, 4, what's 4?
Project
No,
list.
5. There were 2 proposals. One has to do with getting somebody on staff. We're like Mayberry RFD. Our town government relative to the size that we should be to get things done. And I just wanted to look at those couple ideas that you had. Yeah, this is the one.
Yep.
About the development pro to work with the community development. This is specific to affordable housing or housing in general. This first recommendation, I'm asking a clarifying question. Did the planning commission have a sense that hiring somebody who would be conversant in development would be to address specifically affordable housing, or just the more broader picture of housing in general in town?
I think the issue is diversity of housing. We're building one type, or we're not, what's being built is one kind of home generally,
Right.
for the most part, 99% single family. Pretty big, like we looked at square footage numbers, I think more than 3,000 square
Oh my
feet,
God.
definitely more than $583,000. I mean, you have people on the planning commission saying, I'd love to downsize, but there's no place I can afford to move
Right,
to.
but there's a lot of seniors and like a lot of folks in town.
Right,
Gotta move to
So-
Mississippi. That's the only place we're gonna be able to afford.
right, so, and I think.
That could be a big
affordable-
blocker, but.
Affordable housing, we've learned from SJ to differentiate between program-based housing, which often needs services and transportation and a lot of other things around it to make it workable.
Right.
Compared to really more naturally occurring workforce housing. So smaller houses and moderately priced houses. And so I think what I would tell them is that we want the spectrum, the diversity, and the upper end is happening fine on its own. It's probably consuming more rural land than people will be comfortable with 50 years from now. And that's definitely a trend to start looking at. But it's the diversity that's important.
Yeah, I really liked how the group, I want to keep saying the group because I know it wasn't just you.
Yes, it
There
definitely
was a
was
lot of
fun.
people doing a lot of work.
Yes,
That it was the size of the building rather than some percentage of the poverty level, which is always seems like a silly, goofy thing, and you still end up with a $600,000 house. It just never seems to translate into somebody being able to get their foot in the door in a 1,000-square-foot house.
I mean, that's the problem, right?
So that,
Because
I really appreciate you saying that about income diversity. And again, the notion of small dwellings. The other thing though that struck me though is you made a comment, I didn't really see it manifest itself here, is that, you know, we have people in town, most of us, and I've said this before, I think to you, most of us might not expect to see any immediate or direct benefit from ARPA funds related to affordable housing. And I live in my house, I'm gonna ride it out as long as I can, then move to someplace smaller. But we're just not. No, I've lost my train of thought on the housing.
well, you have a house. And most people who live here have a house, but we're limiting the demographics of the community, which is, talk about poverty, that's an impoverished
Right.
social
Yes,
structure
yes,
that is denied a lot of creativity and so forth. And, you know, you guys were just talking, or Martha was just talking about, you know, helping people out and you have a house, so why would you benefit? But you benefit when the teachers at the high school can live in the town so they can get to school.
sure.
You benefit when we're contributing to climate change mitigation
Right.
by trying to have things closer together, closer to Burlington. If people can't live in Jericho, they have to go to Jeffersonville, they have to go further. That hurts everyone.
Yeah.
And so there
Fire
are
department
benefits.
Volunteers, right? Like,
Right.
I hate to generalize, but people buying $800,000 houses may not always be the type that are gonna volunteer for the fire department. You know, those types of things is some of the things that I think about.
Right, it's just the fabric of the community and it's who the community is, and people sort of don't want the community to change, but they don't realize that it's already changing and it's already becoming out of reach. And that's, people didn't move here because they wanted to be in a very exclusive community. They wanted to be in a community that was diverse and had good schools
Dynamic.
and was pretty close, right, and pretty close to schools, and people are friendly and they live close to their neighbors. And so it's almost like you don't want to lose that. But we are losing that if we're not paying attention.
One last thing that just really struck me again, I haven't read Without a Farmhouse Near in a couple of years, but there's a couple pages in the early part of that book that are identical to what we're talking about 40 years later. The Shermers were there, you know the list better than I do, Jim. But the same issues of the Davises and the small dairy farmers being kind of squeezed out so people can drive their Audis and live in their $800,000 houses. It's the same story. And it's really kind of sad. You know, we have this whole town plan that we really, with the best of intentions, wanted to create some of those diverse housing kinds of things. And it hasn't really panned out the way that we intended it.
Because even though you change zoning to quarter acre to encourage more, you know, it's just.
But without reading that book, if you're sitting and watching this on cable, you read that first chapter Without a Farmhouse Near, and it's just uncanny.
You should say it's Deborah Ross's book.
Deborah Rawson's book, right? But thank you so much for
Thank
all
you.
your hard
Thank you.
work,
It's very-
all of you, not just Susan. Thank you.
I think you guys have done terrific.
I
Next
think
up,
if, Madam Chair, before we move on to the next item, I think we do need to have either at the next meeting, the following meeting. I think probably spend a couple of minutes on what our process might be, map out our process for the next steps, when we might make a decision. June would be
Well, I think
On ARPA.
what they're doing is,
on ARPA. The VLCT has a couple of guidelines here that
Yeah.
we may want to just look at. We don't have to talk about tonight, but just some
Yeah.
sorts of things.
it's at 80.
I know.
But clearly, what the idea is, in some ways, we're ahead of the curve because we've engaged the public, to start with. And what they have done, I see, Jim, but let me finish and then I'll talk to Jim. That, we've at least, what the planning commission is doing now is really going to help. And I think we may piggyback with some of their community.
Oh, absolutely. I can see those parallel tracks
Yeah,
running.
so that way, that'll help us inform, because, based on the surveys, the community really wants to see something happen with housing. That's really very important, because it looks like broadband is going to move forward in a different way. So, it's not going to impact our community. All right, Jim, your comments?
Susan, I promised Susan that I would have some public comment because I objected to the process of the planning commission, and I realize these people have an important subject. I'll try to summarize. I've got a lot to say. I've asked the select board table this subject so we can schedule adequate time to discuss it in depth. The presentation by the planning commission, I'll just give you a couple simple points. Number one, it ignores the present value of money. The $1,493,000 is wasted. It was worth $1,493,000 2 years ago. It's now worth about $1,070,000. By the time we get this done, it will be down probably by 70% because of inflation. So this process, as we're doing it, does in fact not work. In the meantime, the houses in Jericho over assessed value are selling for 100% over. Just imagine that.
It's crazy.
And the costs to borrow are over 100% greater. So I spoke to this board, to the planning commission for at least 30 years. We have already missed the sweet spot. If we continue to do things in the future, the way we've done it in the past, all of these hopes and dreams of affordable housing will not work. On October 2016, all of the people who are here tonight, plus all the rest of the officers of the fire department, came in and gave this board 2 weeks to prepare a deed that they would transfer the Rivers property to.
You're spending time looking backwards. Make us a couple suggestions about how we can go
Bottom
forward.
line is that we can and could actually implement in the next 120 days sewer studies. First step, don't go spend a lot of time. You commit some funds and we go dig some test holes and we figure out where we can put septic.
You're talking Riverside property? It's still not
I
ours.
think Riverside's a big mistake. Number one, you don't have an agreement.
So you're talking the Rivers property.
I'm talking the Rivers property. I'm talking the Walsh property. If you listen to all the presentations, the water table's at 35 feet. It's known that those are stands. I can find the answers to all these questions.
So are you suggesting, Jim, that we begin doing perk tests for a couple different parcels of properties?
I think you need a SWAT team, special.
I mean, properties that are not owned by the town yet.
Right.
Well, one's owned by the fire department. One's owned by the Balch family.
Right.
There's several others. I don't want to use people's names.
Sure.
That would be an affront to them.
Yeah.
But I can pull the soils maps. And we can do test pits, which is the first thing you would do to determine the feasibility of sewage. But right in Jericho Center, we have wells that are being used every day by people that are in the cone of effluent that is not acceptable for life and health quality. That study was done when Seth Jensen was here. It's one of the missing Jericho Center studies. And the beginning of the walk around in Jericho Center by the fire chief was, you guys don't have any real fire protection here.
Yeah.
The water is over at the high school. The water is at the range. I don't know whether it's better to tap it, but we just built a sidewalk in the middle of the right of way that I would have put the water line in.
So again, to try to go forward, not
Is-
about 2016, not about 2000. The one suggestion I've heard you, I'm just reflecting what I heard you say, do some perk tests on some property. Do that right away. Was there any other specific suggestions?
Identify resource-based planning where we can do it. But let me go to a couple things quickly. Present value is a noun and it relates to finance. The value in the present terms of a sum of money in contrast to some future value it will have when it's been invested at compound interest. You're getting zero on your $1,493,000 every single.
I hear you. I got money sitting in the savings account doing the same thing.
Okay, future value. Because 10% increase, energy costs, labor costs, machinery costs. All of those costs, when we go to build to have it done by December 26th, I predict those costs will be at least 30% over what they would be in the tail end of 2023. Result-oriented people could actually have state wastewater permits with collaboration and cooperation in 150 days. That's how fast we could do it without any political pressure.
Well, I would say there is something political with the town approaching somebody who owns property and says, we want to do a perk test on your property.
I don't think.
That sounds pretty political to me.
Somebody's already offered to give it to you. That you're being asked to fund tonight at 11% or possibly 27% increase. If we take this burden off of their hands, that is easily available. I used to farm that land. I know exactly where we could put septic. I know exactly where I could put the water line, either from the range or from the high school efficiently. I could have put those conduits in possibly for 70 grand when we put the sidewalk in. Now I got to deal with the fact that the sidewalk's already there. So I got to go around it. The absence of a strategic capital plan and people responsible to make it happen. So I'm suggesting to you that you put a SWAT team together of 3 people who know what they're doing to come back to you within 60 days with a proposal to actually get something done on a present value basis that's consistent with everything that Susan said. And we can use the fire department as a partner, the Rivers' property as a template. And as soon as we've done that one, we can do at least 3, if not 4 more.
All right, that's intriguing.
And I suggest we have 3 more people appointed to look at public works and infrastructure, because the critical thing of building a capital budget, and there are people in this town, if they knew they were going to be listened to, would actually step forward and help us get this done. 25 or 30 years ago, I sat there for a year with Mary Alice Rivers after she made the donation. I'm ashamed of myself that I'm sitting here, and other than the sidewalk, we haven't accomplished anything of what she asked us to do with her legacy. And Don died of leukemia. But they found out ultimately, after the Veterans Association didn't disclose it, he was one of the ordinance officers on an NOLA day. Does everybody remember and understand what that means?
Mhm.
Those people sacrificed, and then they gave 125 acres to us. And I think we have a responsibility going forward to do something significant. I listen to the planning commission almost all the time. And all of the things that they're talking about, we can accomplish wonderful things. But just imagine We want to move the needle forward fast on 10 to 20 affordable houses. What if I have a zero land cost? What if I already have municipal water within a half mile?
Yep.
What if the soils are fantastic?
Sure,
Sure,
And I've
absolutely.
already got multimodal transportation.
right.
I've got recreational water. It's all there. And if somebody said to me, could you do that? We do it all the time. Literally in 4 or 5 phone calls and a day and a half on the ground, we could have a substantial plan. We can then say to the 5 contractors who could actually do this, here's the parameters, guys, give us a design build, we'll have it funded. And you figure out how much you want to do this the best possible way. And we could be in the ground with a good portion of this by town meeting next year. And then we're talking about some really significant change. But more importantly, we're also potentially going to save Jericho Center. You've heard about one structure on Poker Hill.
Yeah.
Just imagine if it's the store.
Yeah.
Just imagine if it's the church.
Yes, we have been talking about the water issue, that's for sure. And
We've been
the-
talking,
we're
we've been
looking
talking
at,
about it forever. It's time to do something.
yeah, we are
months.
looking at how to do something.
Okay, but I'm saying to you, how to do it. We have an $80 million grand list before the last jump. We can say to the voters very soon, we'd like to take 15% of the grand list, leverage it over the next 30 years under the municipal bond rate. That is about $12 million. I divide $12 million by 300. That's how many affordable units that I could actually build and finance. And then you can recycle that money. And these are all very plausible things. So my suggestion is I got this presentation of the Planning Commission yesterday. I've spent a lot of time. This is not a simple subject to discuss.
No.
It involves legal, it involves finance. I've done this for 50 years.
Yes.
I could, if I was a beneficent dictator, as compared to participating in a democracy, we could get this done and get it done.
Sure,
He's-
Mussolini had the same tag, sure.
Well,
Yeah.
I know, and he was not a beneficent. Key
No.
word and descriptive. So
But the town has looked at, is talking about some. of
That's
these
very
issues.
intriguing about the perk test, though.
No, I mean, the select board has been talking about some of these issues.
Mr. Lacy has his hand up.
Yes. No, that's,
Virtual.
So can we schedule?
oh, Chuck Lacy,
Oh,
okay, Jim, we're gonna have,
I understand 3 minutes.
all right, Chuck,
should have had Dave on first.
oh, yeah, I know, we should have. This is not,
Chuck Lacy, Jericho Center. I just want to thank Susan and the Planning Commission and also with the support of the Affordable Housing Commission in terms of what they've accomplished so far. And, you know, I think the first step is really developing a desire and a willingness to recognize, you know, that what we've done is inconsistent, I believe, with our town values, and we're recognizing that. And I think that's been the biggest thing to really, you know, to change and to recognize. And I feel like Susan and the Planning Commission have really looked hard and looked hard at the town, and I really support the direction. I think the first thing is the recognition that we need additional expertise. And I think for the planning, I think the number one in terms of the Planning Commission and recommendation that Susan's put forward, I think is really important. You know, I've spoken with you before about, you know, we have the nature of Jericho. The nature of Jericho is our town government really is more of an orchestra leader of NGOs that the town itself doesn't have a lot of experience in doing big projects. And we're quite different from Richmond, where most of the town services are provided by the town themselves. And I love the way Jericho works. We have an extraordinary number of people in Jericho that have served on some board and have created sort of a civic fellowship with the people they served with at some time during their life in Jericho. And I think that's stricken us as a town. But now, that we're faced with the need to do bigger things, we need to recognize the need to bring in expertise. But Susan brought in the fellow from St. Albans was really a watershed moment, in my view, and I hope, and I believe for the other people that attended that meeting, it was an opportunity for us to see, what a town can do. And St. Albans is smaller than Jericho and Underhill combined. And, we have, and they have just made a real commitment to, being able to do things, as a town. And when I listened to that fellow from St. Albans just talk about how he and St. Albans approached the need to accomplish things, and his obvious ability, but also, having a real CFO in town and bringing in, legal expertise and development expertise. I just think we need to do that. And I think the first recommendation the Planning Commission recognizes that. I think that's sort of also included with the idea, in my view, of expanding or really looking at the governance in Jericho. I think I think we need to drag ourselves into the next century. In terms of, what we're actually doing with the ARPA money, I would encourage us to think of the ARPA money as really kind of a down payment to a much larger effort. We've neglected infrastructure development, and we've neglected, certainly housing and many of our community's needs for just a long, long time. And I think whatever we decide to do with the ARPA money is really kind of a down payment on the future. It's going to be, I dare say it's practice. We're going to learn how to do big things, but we need to do some, eventually we're going to do things 10 times, we're going to do 10 things the size of this current ARPA money. And I think that if we really focus on the perfect, and get into a whole lot of arguments about what the most perfect thing is, I don't think that's where we are as a town. I think we need to figure out how to take the first steps and really focus on what we learn and understand it's the first step, and we're going to take many more. We have the capacity and the resources as a town to do more than just this project. So I would certainly be open to a variety of uses for the ARPA money, because I'm confident that we're going to be doing other things in addition to this. It's like it's not the first and last, dollar. And yeah, I guess that's about what, and things take time to develop. I feel like the Planning Commission has, I think, over the last few years, reoriented in terms of the values that it is hearing that the community holds for itself. And I think that the talent and ability on the Affordable Housing Committee, the stuff just kind of takes time to develop. And we're starting where we're starting. Okay, we started a couple of years ago. We didn't start in 2016. We didn't start in 2010. We're starting where we're starting. And I want to congratulate Susan on her presentation, and I really support it.
Thank you, Chuck. I think what we need to do is move on. We appreciate your comments, Jim, but we I had called the other people up before we realized you needed to speak. And so, thank you for your patience, Dave. And
So,
Yes. Thank you.
we're here representing, Transition Town Jericho. Transition Town Jericho is a grassroots organization in the town, modeled after the, national and international transition town movement. One of the, so from the board is myself, Laura, and then, Chris Sims is online as well, representing the group and being here to talk to you about a proposal that we have. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at the original document we sent out a few weeks
Yeah.
ago.
Mhm.
And what we're focusing on is food. And Susan, your on your team's proposals are super. And I wish we could have gone before you because we don't have anything like that. That's the way it goes, right? But anyway, you know, what goes along with the community and housing and quality of life comes food, and our group has taken on for itself a little bit of how to deal with food and food insecurities. We've been doing two projects in the last few years. One is a project, extra row project, which we distributed about 15 to 20,000 pounds of food in the last 3 years to local food shelves and so forth around the Chittenden County area.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's just one farmer doing, actually a couple of farmers doing some work, growing some extra food, and then we help distribute that food to the people in
you
need.
picked it too.
What's that?
Yes, and picked it too.
Yeah, yes, yes. And then we also did this past spring, a garden project with kids. And the town helped us sponsor that project and pay for that. And we got 10 kids involved in growing their own gardens and learning about how to take care of themselves and growing food. And this kind of piggybacks on that. And what we're proposing tonight is that we would like to be part of the town meeting on town meeting day. And we would like to have a proposition to be voted on, a non-binding proposition to be voted on during town meeting day with the following. We, the citizens of Jericho, propose the formation of Jericho as a vital food hub for the citizens of the town and environs. A food hub commission would be established with the goal of increasing food self-sufficiency via the production, manufacture, and distribution of local foods. And what we had done prior to this is provided information about food insecurities, what the climate change and the uncertainties that it brings to us, and that we've kind of lost ourselves in the last 40 years, 50 years in that we're really disconnected from our food chain. I mean, right now, you get from your grocery store. The grocery store gets it from a distributor. Distributor gets it from a farmer. But do we, when we go in that grocery store, know who that person is who produced that food, manufactured that food? We don't. And we don't have a lot of control over where our food comes from and how it gets here, the miles that it travels, and so forth. And we depend on our system, our current system, free market system, to provide for us. And they do a good job. There's no doubt they do a good job. But can we always depend on them? And can we always depend on the sources? We know that there's problems with drought in the West. We know there's problems now with flooding in the West. Do we always know that we'll have food coming to our stores to provide for us? And we can't always say that there will be. We can't always say that there won't be. We just don't know. But our feeling is that if we don't prepare ourselves and practice at being a people that can take care of ourselves then when the time comes, or if the time comes, will we be ready? And I often think of the hurricane, I can't remember the hurricane that hit New Orleans, 10, 15 years ago. And the people are screaming to the government, come help us, come help us, come help us. And the government's like, well, we're doing the best we can, but we can't help all of you, so forth and so on. Do we want to be part of like that if we're ever cut off from food sources? And this is a doom and gloom kind of picture, but as a person, you want to know that you have control over your destiny, over where your food comes from. And by doing something like this, we will acquire control over time of where our food comes from. Is that food nutritious? Is that food local? And how can we make that happen over a period of time? So in this proposal and in this request to allow us to put on a ballot as a non-binding ballot item, that people would be able to vote on the idea that Jericho would be a great place to have be a food hub in a food sovereignty business, and that we could learn to take care of ourselves. And if that is something that people believe as being part of the citizenry of Jericho, then we feel comfortable that we can move on and pursue the kinds of things that need to happen to make that happen. If there's a general consensus that we really don't have a problem or that we really don't need it, then that's fine, and that's what the citizenry has decided. One other thing, so if nothing ever happens, if we are always in the go with our grocery stores and they always provide for us, well, is this a waste of time? And I believe that it is not, because what we do is we start bringing citizens together, we start bringing people together in the name of food, and we build a stronger community because we're taking care of ourselves. And that in of itself is a great thing to do. We have lots of information about people that are doing this today around the state to get information from them. We have information that we want to get from our people. So the folks, the farmers in our community, the Davis Farm, the Bone Mountain Farm, Jericho Settlers, the Kekas Valley teams, what would they say about this kind of thing? Would they support this? This is some of the things that we would need to do. We also need to get in, we have a meeting with the town planner on Monday to talk about this a little bit. We need to get with the Planning Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission within the town to see what their feelings are about this and whether or not this fits into the picture, the big picture. So there's a lot of work to be done, but at the same time, the work should be precluded, in our opinion, by the support of the community at the outset, and not just a group of people from Transition Town Jericho.
So you're proposing that during town meeting sometime there would be a discussion about
I
this?
think he thinks he wants it on the warning.
You want it on the warning?
Yeah, I was going to say, the select board can actually put on without, but why aren't you doing 5%? Because transition towns, I mean, it's an interesting idea, really interesting concept, because people do value the local food. But if you went out and got your 5% of the voters to actually put it as a petition on the ballot, you actually could fulfill your idea of getting a core group of people who work with you, because you're going to have people are going to need to be educated of what you're trying to do anyway. And the more people you educate, the more people that might support what you're talking about, rather than us just putting on a piece of paper and saying, yeah, we support it, it's a nice idea.
Right.
But if you're out there talking to people, I mean, as you said, Jericho Settlers Farm, put your petition in the where people buy food or at the Jericho store. I mean, as well as go to talk to people who you think will, really be supporters of it, because as you said, it's a lot of work. People are going to look at that. if they just have it in front of them on a piece of paper going, so what is it? You know, if they don't, there's,
So
Yeah.
the quick answer to that is that in the state procedures for doing this, the process says that you can ask the select board to put it on the meeting agenda. Or we can do the 5% or
Right.
even the 10%. And so this is the step which we started back in November to get with the select board to take that first step. So if you're recommending that we take a step back and do the 5%, because we still need the 5%, we still need your authorization.
no, you don't. If you come back to it after you get your 5%, we say it's okay.
Yeah.
Can in June, we came to the select board and we were granted some money to get the kids garden contest going. We've got
Right.
11 families, a lot of new gardeners going
Yeah.
in the next generation.
Right,
And you all suggested that we present a proposal at town meeting.
right.
Yeah, so the idea is to have a town-wide discussion, and if it's deemed that there's a consensus around establishing Jericho as a food hub, and really what that means is every year building in our self-sufficiency food wise, just starting with where we're at. Then we would have to form a commission.
I see that-
So that we legitimize this topic.
But that's why it's good, I think, the 5%, because that way people, you can really educate a lot of people along the way. The other way to do it without doing the select board putting it on a town meeting warrant, or you getting 5%, is actually other business have thought proper at the end of town meeting, because all kinds of things have come up during that you can talk about too. But because it is an interesting concept. I mean, like Chris is, in the church that she belongs to did the, and I'm sure you guys help with the pantry there in the center. Just like the pantry, there's one out in Underhill. Because I read the proposal and I went, people are not going to know what that means.
What's the specific ask? What would be the specific ask of the town of Jericho? What specific, other than supporting a general resolution?
Sure. That we
Would it be tweaking some kind of regulation or making some kind of? What's the specific ask?
that we work towards becoming a food hub, which the definition of the food hub is there, and that the people gather together in support of that and promote that.
And establish a commission, just like a conservation commission we have. We need a food commission to explore. I think at town meeting, we'll need to define what a food hub is. I think it's a worthy discussion for town meeting day. And if people deem it important enough, establish a commission to assign that task of making it happen.
I just say right out, I like the idea, I like the concept behind it, but if I read it on a warning, I would say, what the hell does that mean?
And that's exactly what I
I
said.
don't
That's why,
wanna be impolite, but it's just, what is the thing that I, as Joe taxpayer on Fitzsimons Road or whatever, what am I being asked to do out of this, other than say, oh yeah, I agree with that idea?
it's a nice
Is that
idea.
it? Because if we're voting on, if it's a good idea, yeah, I'm for that. But I don't see anything specific here, Eric, do you?
Yeah, I'm following with both of you.
I don't want to have
I
something
do
vague
think
on
that
the
if it-
warning. It
that-
weakens the purpose of a warning. If we end up having things on a warning and they're like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying, Dave.
But they certainly could bring it up at the last part of town meeting then if they went, because there is that section where people talk about all kinds of different things.
If it's gonna be a warning, though, we have to vote on it tonight, like now.
Oh, well,
This is our,
no,
well, we have one more.
yeah, they can go out and actually get a petition and bring it back and we say, oh, yeah, 5%.
Yeah.
It meets the criteria as
How
a
many-
town visit.
what is 5%?
We're not gonna get 5% in the next 2
It's
weeks.
about
No.
200.
Yeah.
I think you could, if you put it in the various places where people are buying local food. And go around the neighborhoods and stuff like that. It's 135, 140. I don't know what the number is anymore.
I don't know.
It's-
It didn't come.
What?
It's 400.
It's 400 because the marijuana thing was gonna be about
Right.
400 people.
That's right.
But that was,
That's 10%.
that was 10%.
Well, that's right.
So about 200.
About 200.
We're actually planning in the next 2 months, hoping we had your approval to educate, to talk to farmers, talk to as many people as we could, because we thought we'd get your.
Yeah, I'm
We're
for it.
We're for it, it's just that putting it as a dry piece of paper is, I don't
know
think
what
people
it
will get what you're talking about.
Well, that's why it garners a townwide, it's not what town meeting is, to discuss issues. of
Sure.
importance.
Catherine,
Yeah,
does Jericho accept digital signatures?
No, the state does not, we don't accept digital signatures, the state will not accept digital signatures yet, on these kind of petitions. You have to,
Because as I recall, they waived the petitions for people who were being elected.
that was only the elected officials that 1 year. And that-
Pandemic.
So that could be construed as voter suppression, but we won't go there.
That's okay, we don't need
I mean, I don't know, I mean,
you're guessing it's not important.
oh, it is
Or-
very important, it's very interesting, but
to. She said that messages.
message isn't there. People are going to it, like Wayne even said, and he agreed. The message isn't there. It's really nice. It's a great idea. I think it's, I mean, not to.
Well, here's the goal, increasing food, as you've said a couple of times,
Right,
increasing food self-sufficiency
Yeah.
via the production, manufacture and distribution of local food.
right.
That's
So
the
the-
definition of a.
So the
food hub.
implication would be that there might be some role local government could play to
Yeah,
encourage that, I guess.
So for an example of that is when construction groups come in and want to build houses on farmable land. If we had a policy that said, well, this land is ripe for food production and we want it to be part of our food resiliency program, we would ask the town to say, well, it falls outside of that.
Yeah, that's a specific recommendation that,
yeah.
a specific consequence that might come out of this, not a
Right,
recommendation.
because we're losing a lot of land,
Oh, yeah.
potential lands for
Potential,
food
absolutely.
production.
So
Absolutely.
I'm not, for argument's sake, I don't know if they're asking that this specific thing be put in the warning.
The part, the bulletin parts.
Fairly innocuous, I just.
Oh, it
don't know
is.
if
It's
If
very-
it's just gonna communicate, but as you said, town meeting might be the place to do that, Susan, and
It
Yes.
seems to have been pretty innocuous too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Susan?
being sort of a lab rat,
Like, I saw this on the agenda.
lab rat, you don't wanna say that to her, that's what she did for 30 years. She
I
had a-
read the paper. It was completely clear to me what the ask is, which is a general statement of support with a purpose and a goal. And it doesn't seem frivolous to me at all. And it doesn't seem like it doesn't warrant being on a warning. I mean, you guys could create a commission without this, because you
Right.
have the ability to create committees
Oh,
all
we
day
do,
long.
yeah.
Or you could just charter one, but, so you could do that now and then go to town meeting a year from now when you're asking for money and when you're asking for regulation, which you're not asking for now, but there's no. I don't think the majority of citizens would look at this and say, what the heck? I think most people would understand the ask and could decide whether or not to approve it.
I mean, it's a worthy topic. I mean, there's no question about that. It's just, I read it and I wasn't sure that even though people buy local as much as possible, whether they would understand what a food hub was.
I
Well-
would not understand what a food.
But it explains it.
If I were to read it, I do because I read it, but.
Let's call the question, I make a motion that we include this proposition as a warning for upcoming town meeting.
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye,
Aye.
but be sure to go out and really start the education
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, so here's the next steps paper.
Okay.
So if you, just so that you know that we're already thinking about that and.
Because you're gonna,
And we do have, Move On has a great digital process for doing this kind of work. And we're already set to go to get this out to town through Front Forum and so forth. Have people sign on with the concept, so we'll have those,
well, and you're gonna be the ones talking about it at the town meeting,
yes,
because you have the essentially the background material.
you bet.
Can I ask a somewhat related question? So you talked about distributing food and partnering with the Extra Row program. Have you talked with Paul Mazza directly?
I have not, he's one person that I have yet to.
So the reason I ask is I have about 3 acres of cabbage behind my house that did not get picked.
I saw that was so sad.
Yeah.
And it's certainly sad. Extremely unpleasant at this point right now also.
Oh,
I grew up right near Cabbage and Brussels.
Yeah.
Sprouts Field.
And I heard that had happened before. It was when I wasn't living in that particular spot. You know, like one year it was corn, that's fine, but it's problematic.
Yeah.
But I don't just bring it up for me. When I first ran, I reached out to some people that I knew, and my next door neighbor, like, and I asked him, like, what are the things you care about in Jericho? And like, that was like, she's like, literally, that's the only thing. Like, I hate, it's not just about it rotting and it's stinking for the next 6 months, but she's like, I just hate seeing how much of that goes to waste. It's just awful.
Food waste is a real serious issue in Jericho.
Yeah, and I don't mean that he wasn't picking it. I mean, they were leaving there with trucks of cabbages every single day. They were back there. 8,
Wow.
12 workers back there every
I
day.
wonder, because it looked like so much cabbage was left.
Oh, it's.
They did
It's
that
so
another
much.
year in that, it might have been Mazda property on the, right near the corner of North Williston Road and River Road. I think it was actually in Essex where they planted some
Yeah.
similar vegetable and it just
I
rotted.
mean, I get it.
I assume they got current use or something and they just wrote it off. They didn't have to harvest it. I don't know.
Look into these gleaning programs we have, and
Oh,
it's been hard to hook on to that, so that is part of it, becoming part of our community network. A
Yeah,
little more.
he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
He's got
we-
farms all
we
over. I
voted
get
on
it,
this?
but I,
We finished voting on this.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, we did.
Okay, I didn't know if we.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much
thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go, Dave, can you give us the 25 word summary of Harvest Market and,
Oh,
Harvest Market?
yeah,
Sure, very successful. Almost too successful on Saturday. We've got some real things to think about as far around parking and crowd control and so forth. So we realized that those things are things that we're gonna be looking to handle a little bit differently. But
attendance was good. and
attendance was really, really good.
No
especially
security
police
issues at night or anything.
No security issues at night. Police were there on site. They walked the premise. I think they really enjoy it. I think the people really enjoy seeing them there.
oh,
So-
yeah.
So that is.
So it was good.
Very, very big thing. And Catherine, you were there at the end of the parade amongst thousands.
Oh, there was huge, yes. Yeah.
It's just wild, but
Well, actually, nice, that would be a good picture for Lynn, to put in her, town report on, the. Because we gave her the plaque at town,
Oh.
at Harvest Market.
Right.
yeah, you got a copy of the pictures.
Yeah, you
I
did,
sent you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next thing on the presentation is we need to warn the public hearing for capital budget, for public input on 1/19/23, and that would be at 5:30 PM. And that's this. As it says on Thursday, January 19th, 2023 at 5:30, the select board will hold a public hearing to solicit comments on the proposed FY24 capital budget. And so we're inviting the public to attend and offer comments.
I make the motion that be posted.
we have to make a motion to just warn it.
Yes, you do. It's because it's a public hearing, which is not a public meeting.
Gotcha. Okay. I will second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Yeah, I guess the motion should read that we will hold a public hearing on the capital budget on
Right.
January 19th, 2023.
Yeah.
And the motion isn't that, oh, let's post that thing.
Yeah, right, that is. Anyway, so just for people's information, upcoming meetings for the FY 24 budget at 5:30, we'll present the capital budget. And January 19th, the select board meeting of the rest, talk about the rest of the budget. And approve the FY 24 budget. Actually, I'd rather slide that off too, then, because then you could approve the capital budget and the regular budget on the 23rd at 6:30, which would be a special select board meeting to approve the budget, the official town meeting warning, and the town report material.
So Catherine, you wanted to approve the FY 24 budget off on the 19th at 6:30 at the regular select board meeting and just do it on the 23rd?
Right, because isn't on the 19th, we're going to present the regular budget.
Yes.
After the. Yeah, so let's just approve, that way people could still have comment time.
Yep.
And then we will approve both budgets on the 23rd then.
Okay,
Thank you, Paula. for-
yeah, you're welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Up there, awesome.
Yeah.
No place you'd rather be.
And now we're into select board updates. It was the holidays.
Yeah.
And
I've got a few, a few brief updates. So in the wake
I do
of,
have one.
in the
but I'll
wake
wait.
of the approval to join the Chittenden County Communication Union District at our last meeting, I presented a letter of appeal for inclusion to the committee. The committee voted to admit us to the Communication Union District this afternoon.
Oh, how nice.
So we are now officially part of whatever moves forward in terms of bargaining with providers and folks who will build out the
So are they going to do
Broadband.
RFPs for the for people to RFPs for building it, for the build out or things?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I said, is the CUD board then going to send out RFPs?
Yes.
To solicit builders or
They will,
of that?
yeah.
Are they gonna wait a little bit till some of these other
Yes,
towns join? Because there are another 4 or 5 towns that might.
They
possibly
will,
be joining.
and they're actually, it's a really, I've learned a lot about this. It's sort of, it's an interesting process. They also want to, people at the state level want to wait to see how some of the larger companies, they basically have to play their hand in terms of what their intention for build outs are in a given season, which provides some indication of location and potential affiliation with the communities that they're planning to build in. So yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, because those towns that haven't signed on.
Yeah.
Are the ones where you make the least money. Jericho was
Yeah.
one of those too, but we signed on.
Correct.
But those other towns, Westford or whatever, I mean, I would think it would change the RFP you were getting from people.
Yeah.
If, you've got these core Chittenden County communities, and then you got East Podunk Township. And they sign up and all of a sudden the price is so.
Yeah, I'll forward you the minutes of this afternoon's meeting, and admittedly, I had to duck out, I had a kid obligation, so I wasn't there for the totality of the meeting, but.
Well, that's good.
I was
We're
there.
right on the ground floor.
So we should start thinking of putting requests out there ourselves for somebody to actually serve as our
Correct.
who has some expertise,
Oh,
I
you
would
mentioned
think.
that in an email asking me to do it. Yeah, I'd be okay to do it until we find somebody. for
Right.
sure. But I missed, if you mentioned that, what's the time commitment?
So we need, so basically looking for a primary sitting member on the board, and we would need an alternate. Kind of similar to the Chittenden County Waste District and
But what would that mean? Like.
So that would
actual, like,
mean,
time?
that would mean attendance, that would mean attendance at monthly meetings. Moving forward, and yeah, basically communicating between the town, communicating between the communication union. District board and the town being you all.
I think it's very analogous to the PAC rep. Or the TAC rep to the RPC that I am, which is you're this little fly in the rear end of the pig. And all your job is to once in a while say, Jericho, Jericho. Because you have these other people, these giant towns, you're nobody. You don't have any money. And your job is to once in a while during that meeting. But that's why I always, when I'm on the participants list, I always put the word Jericho next to my name. Because that's the whole purpose for me to sit through that 2-hour Zoom meeting. Is for me to just say, don't forget Jericho, don't forget Jericho. And I think it's similar to here because the people driving this cart are going to be the Willistons and the South Burlingtons and the Essex. And all we can do in Westford and Jericho is, hey, don't forget to include us. And what can I do to make sure we're on the list?
Yeah, we got.
And so I don't see it as an intensely time-consuming position for the Jericho rep to have.
Yeah, not in the near term.
Yeah, the value of, I like what they're talking about is the fact that you have to go, this was requiring the companies to go to the underserved areas.
Yeah.
But then along the way, people who wish to change can get a drop. Because without having that possibility, companies were not wanting to go across because without a drop, it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And the big guys don't want the little things that are sitting out here like three houses.
Right. It's not working.
Jim?
And John, did they talk about point-to-point laser? For high-speed internet for distribution?
Not today.
Because a long time ago, we were looking at using point-to-point laser, which is how you get across the Adirondacks. A lot of the high-speed internet arches are not actually cable.
Yeah.
So as you're looking at this stuff, there are technologies that combined with the artificial intelligence and passwords now, you can bring high-speed internet to a local mountain and then distribute it wirelessly. So
We
you're
have
not
that here. I have a friend up on that section that we were talking about of Route 15. That's technically Westford. He's got that. He's got it pointed at Mansfield, I assume. But I don't know what the speed. I don't. They're not getting great speed. They're not getting.
Well, there's Hughes satellite.
No. This is not that.
This is
awful.
fast.
Yeah. This is like, but it's like 25. But I think to qualify for your CUDs, it's got to be 100.
100
100 up,
symmetrical.
100 down.
This stuff, Eric, is extremely fast. It's actually in the system, but it's that. Let's call it restraint of trade and monopolistic and oligopolistic. That using this technology, which is capital intensive, is not conducive to them maintaining the high revenues that they get. And having rights of way, which can be included in permitting, and so as to be able to distribute, because you got to hang off the telephone poles.
Mhm.
And the telephone poles are not, as you can see, there was 34 poles snapped in the co-op. And so you can just imagine how long it's going to be before that stuff is back up. So this technology is actually faster and more reliable, but it's more capital intensive up front. But you get a better service.
Pretty cool stuff out there.
We did not talk about that today, but there's really smart people on this committee. And at the state level too, who are managing the rollout and the distribution of funds.
Well, the first time you've got money sitting there. Santa Claus came early.
So the other things in comparison to broadband expansion and improvement, light pole was taken out. near the Bean and Brew. I don't know
I
if you
saw
noticed
that.
that. Adam and the crew removed it. It was really interesting because the day after the storm, I saw it laying there and I'm like, that is weird. I cannot imagine that wind took that down. So I went in, I talked to Jesse and Jay. They said, well, we thought it was weird too, because it was up when we showed up this morning, which was the Saturday morning after the brunt of the storm. There was a Green Mountain Power crew in the vicinity doing repair work. And then they walked out and the pole was down. It turns out that a Green Mountain Power truck backed into it, knocked it over. Were able to neutralize the electricity going to it. And then called a couple days later to let us know that it was their responsibility.
And they'll pay for it.
And they'll pay for it. So
That's good, because when I saw it laying there, I thought Adam's gonna throw it in the yard of the
Yeah.
highway department. We're not gonna replace that. It's gonna start looking awful, and we're
Well-
never gonna get around to spending $2,000 on the aluminum pole.
Oh,
It
actually,
sounds like now we have somebody who can.
this is their streetscape pole, isn't it?
Right, yes.
That's not $2,000.
no,
Those are the Bob Penman Memorial poles.
they're super expensive, and the bad news is that there are significant supply chain issues with those parts and pieces.
Did you talk to Paula? Because she had identified that we thought we had.
Well,
Several-
we're looking, Paul and I talked about it today. If it turns out that we don't have a complete set of component pieces to put it back online. We talked about in the short term, the potential of basically trying to cannibalize one of the other posts that's not in as primary a place. And the other downside is that all the poles in Jericho Corners are wired in series. So nothing beyond that pole is currently operational.
Gee,
So that's even greater incentive to get that back
Yeah.
online.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, because when Paula was looking into doing the streetscape style poles of Jericho Center, we thought. I think she thought they found 3 poles
Oh, great. Awesome.
at that time.
We'll see.
Hey, John,
Stay tuned. Yeah, Jim.
could you put on your picky list, I don't know whether any of you noticed, but there's a telephone pole in the middle
Yeah.
of Route 15, right down the way from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at night, in the fog, that is one of the most treacherous hazards I've ever seen. And how we have just let that sit there for all these years. Look at it, it looks like it's been attacked by tractor trailer trucks.
Probably was.
And I know-
I don't know how that was approved to stay there during all the redos and the streetscape and the
I know.
repaving.
It requires a letter to the head of V-Trans that says there's an identifiable As soon as you do that, if there is an accident of significance, it triggers the liability clause because you put them on notice with a picture that this thing is literally about 12 inches from the fog line.
I would
On a
support
state highway.
sending a
Yeah, I
letter.
can-
That's
I can-
crazy, that pole.
Oh, because it was so foggy the other
I can
night.
do that. I remember when we were going through the hazard, soliciting input for the hazard mitigation plan. That's something that Chuck had highlighted too. I think he's still with us.
Oh, he is?
So tomorrow, Linda and I are gonna do a tour of the firing range, and after your experience, Wayne, decided that everybody should have it. It'd be a great way to get the current update on
That's great.
activity.
So regular tour you going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to do that, but Bill's gonna be sitting with the car getting the windshield fixed.
And I'm bummed that Sabina left. Sabina has been working diligently on the website. A number of different capacities. She's really been working hard to reach out to committee chairs. So that we can get agendas and Zoom links for each of the recurring committee, commission. Community Development Corporation board meetings aligned. So they each have a singular. Zoom meeting address and ID. So that's not this constant fluctuating.
Yeah, that
Sort
would have
of
been good. for
shooting-
tonight, having 2 different meetings for the back to back and
Shooting fish in a barrel. I thought we
listed and. Yeah, because they're two different meeting IDs for the 5:30.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you know,
Correct.
so like we just had one select board, it's only used for select board. It's the same one
Gotcha.
every time.
Yeah.
You have the link, sure, you might get the time wrong, but if you have the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be a link that doesn't change, that
Yep.
would be huge.
It would.
Yep, Paul and I will follow up on all that. Phil Newbeck is intending, she kind of circled back around the newsletter, but not the newsletter specifically, but a want to do community profiles. So a monthly, quarterly profile of a resident in town who's doing interesting things. I thought that
And
was
she'd do the copy.
she would do the copy.
That's
I
cool.
thought that would be excellent. So we did mentioned it earlier, we being the Beth Sinew and Jeff York and I and Janda from Chittenden County Regional Planning met to hear more about the Municipal Energy Resilience Program. This is $500,000 of funding being made available by the state for energy efficiency, heating transfer. It all starts with a energy audit. So we're hoping, so there's good news and bad news. Bad news is that the state's focus is on what they referred to as energy stressed communities, which is a function of proportion of income being spent for electricity and heat. And as you might
And
imagine,
Jericho would be making that list.
well,
No.
no, we
No.
would not be
Most of
making
Chittenden
that.
County does.
We would not be making that list, but Anne was encouraging that there were very few other communities that expressed interest and provided a project opportunity. So if there is a charitable want to include a less stressed community, Jericho has a shot.
Well, plus it's a historic building.
It is, and she also said.
This building you're talking about?
No, I mean,
Like the library.
we could potentially do any of the municipal buildings. But I think the library would be the focus. They do it
Get
here.
off of kerosene.
Yeah, they send out, they basically have, the state has contractual relationships with energy auditors, and they would, depending, they see how many people are interested, they send out the energy auditors, the auditors report back their findings, they rank the priorities, given what they understand the cost to be, and then they provide the opportunity for those communities and projects to apply for the funding.
Yeah, when I asked the question at the webinar, because the library has had an energy audit by one of the certified Vermont auditors. And I don't know who has the copy. I hope it's still the library, but
Yeah.
the problem is it might be, they said it all depends on how old the audit is, because if it's not too old, they can just do a walkabout audit with the contractors that you're talking about. But if it's old enough, then you might have to go to the full bore
Gotcha.
kind
Well,
of thing.
that'll be up to Jeff and Beth to initiate.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
If we brought municipal water to Jericho Center, all of the wells that currently exist in Jericho Center become subject asset opportunities for geothermal
That's right.
for Jericho Center. And I know one house in Jericho, which is at 4 Old Orchard, that is in fact geothermal, but the new Champlain housing building, but the city of South Burlington. So Vermont Gas is trying to do a replace carbon program to do a model. But places like Jericho Center with the large buildings and this building here, geothermal eliminates the majority of the consumption of carbon-based energy. All you need is something to run the pumps.
Right.
So you could put together a very attractive, because the envelope and the heat loss becomes far less significant if in fact the source of the energy is 55-degree underground water linked to a heat pump system, and you already have hydronic. So it's easier to do geothermal hydronic to a hydronic system. And that these are things that are not that hard to do, but they're capital intensive. You got to have the cash going in, and then you flatten the energy costs. And this would be a wonderful model. And the villages could be, particularly the old buildings, that could be part of the strategy for maintaining and reducing the carbon footprint and the energy costs that could be linked to all of this other stuff that we've talked about. And it's free.
Yeah, you're not kidding. It's the carbon, it's cash intensive to start with. It could be pushing 50K. Because
Well, if you already have the well, or you're drilling the well, because like my neighbor who has it, the difference was they drilled a wider well.
Yeah.
And they went another 150 foot deep. Ideally, you have two wells. But if you're building affordable housing and you're going to have a cluster of 6 or 8 units together,
Right.
you've got all the economies of scale.
right,
And you can actually put pipes next to the effluent in the mound system, because the mound generates bacterial heat. And Efficiency Vermont has literally gone and done the tempering by putting the PEX tubing around the building when they dig for the foundation footings, so that when you put an ERV or an HERV to keep your net zero house with clean air, they're using the geothermal from the footprint of the building that was already drilled.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Peter Schaefer, I think was his name. And it's not that hard.
That's
but
pretty
you
cool.
have to be thinking about it in order to do it.
yeah, it was a little
John's
difficult.
scribbling
They have a very
downstairs.
old well.
We get all that.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
Oh, what else we have? We have the minutes of 12:15 and
Oh, I will just pass this out for people's consideration. You just.
Yeah.
I did read the minutes.
Yeah.
You did for an upcoming meeting, okay. Just to, and it is really consistent with what we were talking about tonight, so that's.
yeah, and then so I think you've did you change the number or something? That's good. Because that's what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Like upwards too, because they were going to do big janitor. Excellent.
My other update is, the PAC was postponed because having it on January 2nd wasn't gonna work for everybody. And the housing goals, I just pass out something for consideration in the future. And then I did head up to Ayers and Milo White, just wanted to let you know, I let Paula know, I just drove up there and looked around.
Yeah.
Oh, I did ended up having something. I should mention that the Jericho Energy Task Force is going to have a presentation of the DRML on January 26th at 7 p.m. And we're hoping to get something to partner with it, but initially we're having Burn Right Vermont come and talk about how to really build your particularly for wood stoves, a better way of building your fire, which gives less carbon to the air.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I didn't learn
this
that
one-
in Boy Scouts.
I thought
No.
I was the best fire builder in town.
No,
I'm gonna challenge him a little bit on that. Come on.
Burn Right. Yeah, well, maybe come and talk to her. I mean, 'cause it's called Burn Right Vermont, and it's they've been doing all
That's
kinds
an
of
intelligent
presentation
family.
about how to reduce the amount of carbon that's put out from a fire. That
Well, when I got my latest stove, the requirements that they had to have, I think it was, I bought it the first year that they required them. It's pretty low emissions of any new stove. I don't even know if you're really allowed to buy a used stove anymore,
yeah,
unless you're just between two people. But I don't know that you can buy one from like a real store, because they have to meet some pretty crazy
yes.
whatever.
And I guess she's talking about how to build fires to accommodate that.
And your wood stove though?
Yeah, this says wood stove.
Huh,
So it could be, you know, particularly beneficial for those who have older wood stoves.
There are wood stoves that regenerate, that they take their own
Right.
gas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Return.
absolutely.
And
That's what I mean.
I've got one of
Mine
those
has
that we don't have to touch the chimney.
Yeah.
It's all about the heat of the burn
Yeah.
and it converts it into ash.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, so we're hoping to have something else to partner with it, but Efficiency Vermont said they couldn't provide anybody. Because we were going to talk about heat pumps, but they're going to give us an vent in a box. And but we're also talking to Dwight DeCoster of Underhill to see if he wanted to talk about weatherization. Does that go, any of those go along with, you know, whether you're using a wood stove or whatever. So there is something there.
So we have, just real quick, we do have, for onboarding, seasonal, hire to work with Adam in the road.
Oh, wow.
So it happens to be his father, who's a crack plow driver. And longtime road foreman himself, which is exceptional. And we have had a couple of recent inquiries for maintenance positions, and Adam's dad is also a mechanic. Which
what's
is,
the length of the contract?
So the length of the contract would be after 6 months. So it's temporary full-time for now. After 6 months, we'll review.
Okay, I would like to take the opportunity to review.
Yeah.
Just,
Oh, yeah, we should.
just not roll.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a requirement. We should be doing that with all employees technically, or
Okay,
on a
great.
6-month probationary period, and that's outlined in the letter. And last but not least, the committee gathering that I talked about, we have the community center reserved for Friday, January 20th, which is the evening after our next meeting. Been getting resounding responses from committee chairs about the benefit of getting all the committee members together
Yeah.
to both
What time is this?
it'd be 6 to 8. And we talked about providing some kind of big dishes, some lasagna, some stuffed shells, something like that. Other people will be bringing, it'll be potluck style. Beer and wine as possible. And the idea will be to just generate some momentum heading into the new year and all the committee, commission and board work. Getting people familiar with one another. We haven't had a lot of opportunity for cross collaboration between committees, save for our affordable housing and planning commission friends. And
Yeah.
Is there an agenda then? Is there a program? Are you gonna be?
yeah, so I mean, the program it's intended to be informal, but
Sure.
the program piece will be having committee chairs introducing their membership to the larger community. And then highlight 3 goals or initiatives that are hoping to achieve or work on looking to the year ahead. So I think it'd be valued,
Yeah.
fun and valuable for you to be part of it.
You said 6 to 8.
That meeting.
Yeah.
6 to 8.
6 to 8.
Yeah, because we have been
You're gonna be
doing
there,
our,
you got one.
we have been doing the quarterly chair to chair meetings up until this spring. When it fell apart because we were, Catherine had left and John was busy and I got COVID
Other than that,
and so just didn't quite, but that also is a value for. But they at least were able to talk quarterly about.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's-
About these issues to start the collaboration kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
That's a great thing you started.
Yeah.
Great.
So anyway, we need to approve the minutes and do we have a possible executive session, personnel or legal to talk about?
There is no need. Believe it or not.
It's worth mentioning though that this holiday get together was awful nice.
Oh, that's good.
Oh,
Good.
John had a good tone.
Oh,
The
wonderful.
room had a really nice feel to it,
Excellent.
right?
Yeah, it was great.
The highway,
Yeah, I was-
the highway crew came, which was huge.
Yep.
It's like when you work at a school and the people from the cafeteria show up. It's a
Right.
big deal.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
So I was really glad, and
Yeah,
hats off to you for pulling that off, and the vibe, if you will, in that room is, certainly in part to your leadership. So
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah, I wish I, thought to look ahead that Bill had in his hand thingy. But so much for, there are times that having one car is a real pain,
Yeah.
even though it's energy efficient, as that should be.
You've got to get an electric bike,
There
and you can
go.
go up and down Nashville Road on that little
Oh
electric
my
bike.
God, you kill yourself on that road right now. I mean,
You
it
kill
is
your
so-
kidneys
The
getting
potholes and the potholes in the washboard.
I guess
don't kill
it's-
Speeding
it's
drivers
a
as well.
skating rink. I mean, Adam has done a great job of trying to keep on top of it, but given the rain and the mud season, it really is slick coming in tonight. It was very slick.
My granddaughter was saying this morning as I'm heading up Plains Road with her, Grandpa, why is this road so bumpy? I said, well, when it rains, all the dirt roads get bumpy. Why does it keep getting bumpier?
No.
Wayne, are you sure that you cannot put a speed limit on a dirt road?
Well, they said you could, they just recommend you don't.
Yep,
Well,
You could establish it, and I think we do have some for a couple gravel roads.
right, for a
Yeah, I
I
couple.
think
Yeah,
the time
we
has
have-
a speed limit, right?
Yeah.
No,
we have
sometimes we tried to do a speed limit,
that's
we
right.
tried to do the 25, but
It didn't work
that
out.
got shot down.
And we had a gravel road that apparently didn't have a speed limit, did a transportation study, a speed study. And did get
Yeah.
speed limit signs, and then everyone decided they hated the signs and they were taken down.
Well, understanding the popularity of the shuttle people but it's, I did a presentation for the town of Jericho called a residential lane, where when you have pre-existing non-conforming, poor sight distances, no good shoulders, and pedestrians mixed with other things, that you can pull the speed limit down to 15 miles an hour. And whether it's popular with residents or not, it is something, because I got hit on Bulger Hill Road by a guy high on cocaine that was taking care of a house. And they, fortunately, the male prosecutor wouldn't do diddly squat. The two women listened to the jerk that I was talking to and told me, come over after he leaves. They sentenced him to 3 years for hazardous operation, leaving the scene of the accident. Fortunately, at the last minute, I jumped up on the hood and literally ended up this close to his face. And I got the license plate.
Wow.
And I think that the notion, when I read the regs, is that if you establish that gravel roads tend to have established kind of a safe travel speed. And if you put a 35 there, people are going to go around 35 anyway, because even without the sign, that's sort of what it takes to get on a gravel road. And they said that if you put it too low, this is the state's perspective, you put it too low, you have so many people ignoring the speed limit sign that it actually weakens the effect.
But
I'm just saying what their logic was in the book.
Just understand, in the real world, we have 3 to 4 solid waste people. Large trucks barreling up and down the roads trying to stay on a schedule. And now you got FedEx and UPS. And if you put the speed limit on, a commercial driver gets 5 points. He doesn't have a job.
Right.
And so the.
Yeah, I read
police-
this about the UPS and FedEx. It's getting to be a real issue in
Oh, it
neighborhoods.
is very tough.
Because these guys, these
all
people are
races
just, they've got to
That's
go full board, even make a nickel, these
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, they have to follow up a little more anyway.
But I just think that in terms of where we are with priorities, that's relatively simple to do, and we've been asking for it on Bulger Hill Road for 25 years.
The speed limit.
Yeah, in other
Yeah.
words, we can't, unless they have some other violation,
Right.
Yeah,
they can, and I mean, what we're trying to do with the T intersection is to put stop signs so that you force them to a stop and you roll through the stop sign, that's $300 and 2 points. So, you know, I mean,
The problem's gonna be getting the sheriff to go all the way up there, Jim.
I love I think the T we should have done a couple of years ago. It's relatively.
well,
simple.
Right.
We did try, yeah.
You did try. Remember, the rest of the neighborhood didn't want it.
Funds on some of these smaller, easy to
Yeah.
do, one-off projects that could be done quickly, and they weren't able to get them.
So do we have any,
Yes, we have the minutes of 12:15, and then since there's no executive session tonight, then we will move on.
I read did you have updates for the minutes? I actually read them today and I didn't find anything, but I was wondering if you did.
Yes,
Oh,
December 1st. It's not, it's December 15th minutes.
I did not catch that. Nice.
that is substantive.
Yep.
That's right.
I think Paula did that on purpose.
Good to see. Because it's true, I went straight to the text. I didn't look at the,
She was testing you, Eric.
I'm not an attention to detail person, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's detail, there's detail and there's detail.
Yeah, absolutely. That's,
So
Is that it?
that's it, though.
So I make a motion, we approve the minutes of December 15th with that important correction.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We ready for a motion? To adjourn or no?
Yep.
I make a motion, we adjourn at 9:07.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Excellent. Excellent meeting, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Let everyone.